I think it's a rather uncontroversial take that League of Legends essentially is a little bit addictive, and it's also just a continuous grind. And I think a lot of us know in the back of our mind that it's built that way on purpose. And usually, with any product that you build, it's going to be addictive in some sense. But the more important thing is to understand maybe why it's so addictive. Now, I think Riot are geniuses in sort of a diabolical type of way that mega corporations are these days anyways, is that they've made their game to where it's a continuous grind that you have to keep playing, that you have to keep yourself up to date with the latest things in order to even really play the game at a competent level, so to speak. And their idea about patching a game consistently, like over and over, I think they have one of the fastest patch cycles out of any game still to this day. And certainly back in the day when it was 2009 the game was released, they were patching the game still quite frequently, and they were churning out champions like none fucking other, right? I think it was every patch there was a new champion, right? Versus now, I believe it's still every other patch. They might have changed that, but it certainly was every patch there was a new champion, and you could expect a new champion, have to learn that champion, figure out what it does so that you know the counters to it, etc. And also, you didn't even have to play the champion necessarily, and that still exists today. You don't need to play every single champion that comes out in the game. You just kind of have to know approximately what the champion does, their abilities, get familiar with it, maybe the ranges and whatnot. But as you look at it maybe on the screen, for instance, in terms of if you're watching it, as an esport, it's very difficult to tell what a champion kind of precisely does, especially as they've gotten more and more complex without actually playing the game. And I think this is the portion about which Riot are geniuses, in the fact that what they do consistently with patches is they make it to where they're not trying to fix what's broken. Historically, that's what game developers used to do back in the day, was that they would fix things that are really broken. Either it's like a literal game flaw to where it creates a game error, right, and it crashes your game, or they create something, or they patch something in which is just completely overpowered and it's very blatant that it's being abused by players. And then of course they patch things like cheats and stuff too. So these were the historical things when it came to a game developer back in the day, when it came to patching games. And of course before that it was just fucking you had the CD discs and you couldn't patch, right? Because there was really no internet back in the fucking day anyways, right? So you were kind of stuck with that. But with the whole internet and being able to update consistently, and one of the first consoles back in the day was of course Xbox. And Xbox, they had a way for you to jack into the internet, and during that time the internet was also starting to boom and households were starting to get it more and more. And you could kind of convince your parents to allow you to plug in your Ethernet cord to your Xbox or whatever. And there used to actually be particular ways in which you could play like the version of Halo 1 online, which was pretty fucking sick. There was like a custom program that you had to run on your computer, and like you had to run it through a hub or something like that. And it was, anyways, point being though, is that companies back then, they didn't patch games regularly. But now with the evolving of the internet, now they're able to patch games quite frequently. And Riot specifically took advantage of this aspect, and they were just like, wait, what? Why don't we just patch the game consistently to where now our user base, first of all, it's fresh, it's new, they're bringing something different, and they keep their already engaged fan base over a longevity of time, right? A brevity of time, to where they keep and retain that same audience, but at the same time, as people get more and more introduced to the game, they then grow their entire user base completely. And I think that's why the game exploded over time too. And, with a little bit of luck as well, right? Like, you don't become one of the biggest gaming companies in the world, or rather the most popular game in the world, without having a little bit of luck, right? So let's not give Riot too much fucking credit. But they've essentially created this ecosystem of constantly playing the game. That's like their entire motto, basically. Like, even when you think of the ranking system within League of Legends, is that, well, every season first of all, it's split up into seasons. Second of all, there's a reset of the ladder during, those splits of different seasons. And then on top of that, you don't get to keep your old rank, or even like really remotely close to it at all. Usually you're behind, at least nowadays, you're behind like an entire metallic tier, right? So silver, gold, platinum, diamond, etc., right? So you're behind an entire metallic. And this is on purpose, right? There's a soft MMR reset on purpose, and it's to make you want to reach whatever that you had before, which takes time, obviously, and then to get past that, which you getting past that level is probably pretty unlikely if you aren't putting in the time and the effort and the diligence and whatnot in order to study the game and improve your habits, etc., right? So usually you're just going to plateau somewhere. But once you plateau, it's like, well, now you got to get back to that rank. And getting back to that rank is very difficult a lot of the times. And, I even went through this within League of Legends too. For the majority of the seasons that I've played League of Legends, I've been platinum for the entire time. You can even fucking op.gg me. It's just Izento, right? And I've been platinum 4, platinum 3, hovering around there for like 6 seasons. And every single year, it's such a pain in the ass to get back to that position of what I once was, right? Of that skill level. And as such, you spend all of your time doing that, and then now it's like, all right, let's crack down and let's get past that. And then it becomes difficult because you've plateaued and you aren't putting in the work, or the studiousness in order to reach past that. So I think we've all been there before, and I think that's the majority of the player base, in fact. And it's not the fucking hardcore people like the pros or whatnot. And so Riot has instilled this system, and they know exactly how it fucking works. That's why they won't really show you your MMR or anything, because it's gonna be the same shit, right? And you're gonna see the same number. They want something new, something to spice up your shit, which is why they introduced the different divisions and the different tiers and whatnot. Also, because that's more of an attainable goal, right? But we'll get back to that idea later. Now, the entire pro side of things, I think this is why pro players quit the game so early. And I think this largely gets a little bit overblown because in the early days of esports, I think the reason why pro players quit a lot, right? And it wasn't because of age or anything, right? It was just basically of money, economics, right? You wouldn't make a whole lot of money as a pro player. And in fact, you could go work somewhere else or go to college even, and you would eventually make more money than you were as a pro, making like $30,000 a year, which would have been like a top salary back in the day, right? Like a crazy top salary, in fact. So yeah, it's partially money motivated of why pro players quit, because they had thought that there wouldn't be this explosion of money and whatnot, and fucking venture capitalists and angel investors and shit putting in millions to these organizations and franchising and whatnot. But the other idea is that basically the whole mastery aspect of the game itself, and the fact that when you master something, it takes a lot of sacrifice. You basically end up becoming a less well-rounded human, like just full blown. You become dedicated to this one particular thing, especially if you're a pro player or someone in the top percentage of any field whatsoever. I don't care if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a pro player, if you're a pro golfer, whatever. To become the top percentage of that just requires insane fucking dedication that I or most people can't even fathom in terms of the dedication that you need to have and to grind every day and to beat everyone else, because everyone else is trying to do the same thing, right? Especially, and so eventually it feeds through this funnel of just the top people, right? The people that have literally sacrificed their entire lives and to have a well-rounded human experience. Instead, they've decided to become a master at a specific craft. And so with that mastery, it demands a sacrifice no matter what. And, some people become obsessed with that idea of mastery of itself. And that gets taxing on a person, especially as you grow older and you realize that, okay, maybe you would actually like to experience being an actual human, right? A full-fleshed human. And I think this is what happens a lot of the times with these pro players. And it's kind of like those Japanese swordsmiths, right? The great swordman. And there's really, that's a pretty rare profession, even in Japan. But, there's some cool documentaries out there where it's like, there's fucking apprentices that practice with a sword master, and they're there for like 10 fucking years, and they're still an apprentice. So, and, part of that is, the entire culture of that is just like, okay, well, like clearly he's probably learned most things or whatnot, but at the end of the day, you can be criticized on all different aspects and all little minute details, and you can always improve. And so if you get stuck in that cycle, that's what you get when, you think of like the analogy of the Japanese swordsmith. And so that becomes taxing on the body itself. And I think that's why a lot of older pro players end up actually quitting. And in fact, I think that's why some of them even take breaks. Actually, that's part of the reason as to why I think the whole Sven benching in Cloud9 was particularly because of that, because he probably went to Jack and said, hey, I haven't had a break in like 3 years. Like, I've literally been to fucking MSI and Worlds every single time. I've been to the finals of multiple different, years and whatnot on different teams. I need a fucking break, bro. And your Academy ADC is pretty good, so you aren't going to lose anything. So, and Jack's probably like, yeah, but that's just my assumption. I don't really know. But back to the entire idea of just esports itself, just think of the idea of watching League of Legends esports. You have to play the game in order to even be able to watch the fucking game. That's how like enclosed the entire system is in terms of that, and just the continuous grind of even being a viewer. You have to like somewhat grind League of Legends and keep up with it in some tangible aspect. And this is not a bug. It's a feature, right? It's that Riot wants you to play the game, because playing the game gets you a lot of the dollars and whatnot. And previously, they didn't even monetize the esports aspect anyways. It was all just a reason in order to get you to play the game itself, right? And then they can monetize you that way, right? By buying all the skins and stuff. So this is a complete feature. And I think no other major esports other than fucking Dota requires this burden of knowledge from the viewer themselves. And so you get trapped into like that entire universe itself. And you could even think of the aspect of creating content about the game with, news articles or, just breaking down news itself. You have to understand the game at some fundamental level in order to have, an in-depth conversation about the game and to create your article, other than just gamers and having this crazy prize pool. Isn't that insane? Like video content creators even would have a difficult time covering this game in terms of just the regular video games press itself. They would even have a difficult time covering this game. So you have to kind of embed yourself with it in order to even watch the content, watch esports at all, or even just understand the game, just by looking at videos or whatnot. You would have to actually play the game. And I think there are multiple different ideas within inside League of Legends itself, which keep you in that universe, such as addictive measures like loot boxes, right? Or even the entire goal orientations, such as the missions and whatnot, and how the missions give you rewards, and they give you IP in order, or blue essence, now that it's called. They give you blue essence in order to then, of course, purchase different champions or whatnot. And so this entire thing of just like, even, as before I said, the goal orientation of ranked, right? Of just like, well, I got this rank last season, so I must get at least that rank, if not higher. And so you keep grinding and you keep playing games and whatnot, even though the system is built to actually put you away from that, to where you have to grind a certain amount of games, unless you get incredibly more skilled than you were previously that season, right? Which you would have to put in a whole lot of work, read a lot of guides, and then get in that universe even more and consume content even more, which you're still doing what Riot wants you to do to begin with, right? So I think just all those different aspects are ways in which you continuously grind League of Legends. And at least once you understand all these different nuances of how Riot kind of puts you inside their universe, and you're kind of trapped in there, so to speak, right? Even though you should be of your own volition and be able to escape that, but that's not really how addiction works now, is it? But some of these things I think are just not really talked about a whole lot when it comes to League of Legends, and people breaking down the specific nuances of maybe why League of Legends is such a grinding game, and all these reasons are as to why that is. And so I don't know, maybe that will help people at least realize, what they're doing with their lives, or, continuing to support the esport, support the game and whatnot. And I'm not saying that you don't have to support the game. Like, that's not my intention at all with this. And in fact, I'm still going to cover League of Legends, of course, and I'm still going to consume probably more League of Legends than most of you guys in terms of both content and the esport, and also playing the game. But you should at least be able to realize the different nuances of exactly the certain mechanisms in which, you are within this universe of League of Legends and Riot Games itself.